Everyone laughed when poor Janitor helped old woman till she revealed her true identity. Marcus Williams didn't know that Tuesday morning was that his entire life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. The elderly woman he would meet wasn't a stranger at Elshie, was the grandmother he'd never known existed. Searching for the grandson her estranged son had raised in poverty after walking away from a billion-dollar fortune, and the simple act of kindness he was about to show would reveal a family secret that had been hidden for 25 years, transforming him from an invisible janitor into the heir of an empire. Marcus Williams pushed his janitor cart down the marble corridor of Sterling Heights corporate tower, the wheels squeaking rhythmically against the polished floor. At 25, he had learned to make himself invisible during business hours. The executives in their tailored suits barely glanced at him as they rushed past, their expensive shoes clicking importantly against the stone he had buffed to a mirror shine. Just hours before, it was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. Marcus was emptying trash bins on the 14th floor when he noticed the commotion near the elevator banks. A small crowd had gathered, their laughter echoing through the hallway. He wheeled his cart closer, curiosity overriding his usual practice of staying out of sight. At the center of the crowd stood an elderly woman, perhaps in her 70s, wearing a faded floral dress that had seen better days. Her silver hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and she clutched a worn leather purse against her chest. She looked lost, her eyes darting around the hostile circle of well-dressed professionals who seemed to find her presence amusing. "This is a corporate building, ma'am," sneered Bradley Morrison, a junior executive Marcus recognized from the 9th floor. "Not a soup kitchen. You need to leave." The woman's voice trembled as she spoke. "I have an appointment. Please, if someone could just help me find an appointment." Another voice cut her off, belonging to Jennifer Caldwell from accounting. "Look at her. She probably wandered in from the street." More laughter rippled through the group. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. His mother had taught him better than this. Before he could talk himself out of it, he stepped forward, gently touching the woman's elbow. "Excuse me, ma'am? Can I help you find where you need to go?" The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by shocked silence. Then it erupted again, louder and crueler than before. "Oh, this is perfect," Bradley said, pulling out his phone. "The janitor and the bag lady. Someone get a picture of this." "Marcus, what are you doing?" That was Tasha Reynolds, his co-worker and one of the few people in the building who treated him like a human being. She stood at the edge of the crowd, her cleaning supplies in hand, concern etched across her face. Marcus ignored them all, focusing on the elderly woman whose eyes had filled with tears. Up close, he noticed things the others had missed. Despite her simple clothing, she carried herself with a certain dignity. Her hands, though wrinkled, were well maintained, and there was something sharp and assessing in her gaze as she looked at him. "What's your name, ma'am?" Marcus asked gently. "Eleanor," she said softly. "Mrs. Eleanor. I'm Marcus. Let me help you." He glanced at the crowd, his jaw tightening. "The rest of you should be ashamed of yourselves. You're going to lose your job over this," Jennifer warned, though her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. "Mr. Whitmore doesn't tolerate disruptions." Marcus shrugged. "Then I'll lose it doing the right thing." He turned back to Mrs. Eleanor. "Who's your appointment with?" Before she could answer, the elevator dinged, and Robert Whitmore himself stepped out, the CEO of Sterling Industries, the man whose name was on the building they all worked in. His steel-grey eyes swept over the scene, taking in the crowd, Marcus, and Mrs. Eleanor. The hallway went deadly silent. "What's going on here?" Whitmore's voice was cold enough to freeze water. Marcus felt his stomach drop, but he stood his ground, his hand still gently supporting Mrs. Eleanor's elbow. Whatever happened next, he knew he had done the right thing. His mother would have been proud, even if it cost him everything. Mrs. Eleanor straightened her shoulders, and for just a moment, Marcus thought he saw something flicker in her eyes. something that looked almost like satisfaction. The crowd scattered like leaves in the wind as Robert Whitmore approached. Only Marcus remained, still standing beside Mrs. Eleanor, though his heart hammered against his ribs. He had worked at Sterling Heights for 3 years, and this was the closest he had ever been to the CEO. Whitmore's reputation preceded him: brilliant, ruthless, and unforgiving of incompetence or disruption. "I asked a question," Whitmore said, his gaze moving from person to person. Bradley and Jennifer had suddenly discovered urgent business elsewhere, melting into nearby offices. "Someone better start talking." Tasha stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension. "Mr. Whitmore, this elderly woman was being harassed by some of your employees." Marcus was helping her. Whitmore's eyes settled on Marcus, who forced himself to meet the CEO's gaze. "Is this true?" "Yes, sir," Marcus said. "Mrs. Eleanor said she had an appointment. I was trying to help her find where she needed to go." For a long moment, Whitmore studied him, and Marcus prepared himself for the worst. Then the COO's expression shifted subtly, something almost like approval flickering across his features. "And what's your name?" "Marcus Williams, sir. I'm part of the janitorial staff. I can see that." Whitmore turned to Mrs. Eleanor, and his entire demeanor changed. The cold executive mask slipped, replaced by something warmer, almost respectful. "Mrs. Eleanor, I apologize for this treatment. Please, come with me." Mrs. Eleanor smiled, patting Marcus's hand before releasing his arm. "Thank you, young man. You have a good heart." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. "Remember this day, Marcus Williams. Kindness is never wasted." As Whitmore escorted Mrs. Eleanor toward his private elevator, he paused and looked back. "Williams, come to my office at 5 o'clock. Tasha Reynolds, you as well." The private elevator doors closed, leaving Marcus and Tasha alone in the hallway. The silence stretched between them until Tasha finally spoke. "Well, that was either the best or worst thing you've ever done." Marcus laughed, though it came out shaky. "Probably worst. We're getting fired, aren't we?" "Maybe." Tasha smiled, despite the situation. "But you did the right thing. Those people were awful to her." She hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry I didn't step in sooner." "You would have," Marcus said. "You always do." They had been friends since Marcus's first week, when Tasha had shown him the ropes and warned him about which executives to avoid. She was 32, a single mother working 2 jobs to support her daughter. Like Marcus, she understood what it meant to struggle, to be invisible to people who thought their money made them better. "What do you think that was about?" Tasha asked as they returned to their carts. Why would the CEO personally escort some random elderly woman? Marcus shook his head, remembering the look in Mrs. Eleanor's eyes. "I don't think she's random at all. Did you see how Whitmore's whole attitude changed when he saw her?" "Yeah, I did." Tasha glanced at the elevator. "And did you notice her hands? Those aren't the hands of someone living on the streets." I noticed. Marcus checked his watch. 3 hours until 5 o'clock. 3 hours to wonder if he would still have a job by the end of the day. "Whatever happens, I don't regret it." "Good," Tasha said firmly, "because I don't either. If we're going down, at least we're going down with our dignity intact." They worked in companionable silence for the rest of the afternoon, though Marcus found it hard to concentrate. His mind kept returning to Mrs. Eleanor's parting words and the mysterious smile she had given him. Something told him this wasn't over, that whatever happened at 5 o'clock would change everything. He just hoped it would change things for the better. At 4:55, Marcus and Tasha stood outside Robert Whitmore's office on the 42nd floor, a place neither had ever expected to visit. The executive suite was a different world, thick carpets that swallowed sound, original artwork on the walls, and a hushed atmosphere that spoke of power and money. Marcus tugged at his work uniform, suddenly aware of how out of place he looked. "Stop fidgeting," Tasha whispered, though her own hands were clenched tight. Whatever happens, we face it together. The CEO's assistant, a polished woman in her 40s, gestured them forward. Mr. Whitmore will see you now. The office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Whitmore sat behind a massive desk, and to Marcus's surprise, Mrs. Eleanor sat in one of the leather chairs facing him, looking far more comfortable than she had hours earlier. Williams, Reynolds, please sit, Whitmore said, indicating the remaining chairs. I imagine you're wondering why you're here. Yes, sir, Marcus said, his mouth dry. Mrs. Eleanor turned to look at them, and Marcus was struck again by the intelligence in her eyes. Up close, in better lighting, he could see that while her dress was simple, it was also well made. There was something regal about the way she held herself now, as if the frightened woman from earlier had been a role she was playing. Let me introduce you properly, Whitmore said. This is Eleanor Hartley. She's a member of our board of directors and the majority shareholder of Sterling Industries. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Tasha's sharp intake of breath told him she was equally shocked. Majority shareholder. Tasha managed to say. Mrs. Eleanor smiled, but there was no mockery in it, only a kind of sad wisdom. I've been on this board for 35 years, since my husband founded this company. But lately, I've been concerned about the culture we've created here. So I decided to see it for myself. You were testing us, Marcus said slowly, understanding dawning. All of us. I was observing, Mrs. Eleanor corrected gently. I wanted to see how employees at every level were treated, how they treated each other, and how they treated someone they perceived as beneath them. Her expression hardened slightly. What I saw today was deeply disappointing. Except for you two. Whitmore leaned forward. Mrs. Hartley and I have been discussing changes that need to be made. Today's incident simply confirmed what we've both suspected that success has made too. Many people here forget basic human decency. Marcus found his voice. What about Bradley Morrison and Jennifer Caldwell? The others. Being dealt with, Whitmore said curtly. But that's not why you're here. Mrs. Hartley has a proposition for you both. Mrs. Eleanor folded her hands in her lap. Marcus, I was impressed by your courage and kindness. You risked your job to help someone you thought was vulnerable. That's the kind of character this company needs in leadership positions. She turned to Tasha. And you spoke up when others remained silent. You both showed integrity when it would have been easier to look away. I don't understand, Marcus said. Leadership positions? We're janitors. You're people with potential, Mrs. Eleanor corrected. People with values that matter more than any degree or pedigree. I'm offering you both the opportunity to join our new management training program. Full salary during training, education benefits, mentorship from our best executives. Marcus felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like him. Why? Tasha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why us? Mrs. Eleanor's smile was warm now, genuine. Because you reminded me what this company used to stand for before it became just another corporate machine. You reminded me why my husband and I built this place to create opportunities, not hierarchies. She stood, and both Marcus and Tasha automatically rose with her. The question is, Mrs. Eleanor said, are you ready to accept? Marcus sat in his studio apartment that night, staring at the business card Mrs. Eleanor had given him. Embossed gold lettering spelled out her name and title. Eleanor Hartley, Board Director, Sterling Industries. His phone buzzed for the 10th time, his mother calling from Detroit. He finally answered. Marcus, baby, you haven't called me back all evening. I was getting worried. Sorry, Mama. It's been a day. He proceeded to tell her everything, his words tumbling over each other in his excitement and confusion. When he finished, there was a long silence. Then his mother spoke, her voice thick with emotion. Your father would have been so proud of you, not for the job offer, for what you did, for standing up. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. His father had been a janitor too, had worked himself to exhaustion trying to provide for their family, and had died of a heart attack when Marcus was 15. I keep thinking I don't deserve this. Mama, there are people with college degrees who can't get opportunities like this. And why don't you deserve it? His mother's voice turned firm. You've worked hard every day of your life. You've been taking online classes at night, trying to better yourself. You treat people with respect. That's worth more than any piece of paper. But what if I fail? Then you fail trying. But Marcus, baby, what if you succeed? After they hung up, Marcus found himself thinking about his father, about all the nights he'd come home exhausted, about the dreams he'd never had the chance to pursue. This opportunity was bigger than just Hemet was for his father's memory, for his mother's sacrifices, for every janitor who had ever been invisible. The next morning, Marcus and Tasha met at the coffee shop across from Sterling Heights before their shift. Tasha looked as exhausted as he felt. I didn't sleep at all, she admitted, stirring her coffee mechanically. I kept thinking about my daughter, about what this could mean for her future. Are you going to accept? Marcus asked. Tasha was quiet for a moment. I'm terrified, Marcus. I dropped out of community college when I got pregnant. I've been cleaning offices for 10 years. What do I know about management? You know how to work hard. You know how to treat people fairly. You know what it's like to struggle. Marcus leaned forward. Mrs. Eleanor said, those things matter more than degrees. Easy for her to say. She's rich. But Tasha's voice lacked conviction. What about you? Are you accepting? Marcus thought about his father, his mother, the studio apartment he could barely afford, the online classes he studied for after his shifts. Yeah, he said finally. I am. I'm scared out of my mind, but I'm doing it. Tasha smiled, and some of the tension left her shoulders. Then I guess we're doing this together, just like we face everything else. They reported to HR at 9 o'clock, where they signed more paperwork than Marcus had ever seen in his life. The training program would start in 2 weeks, giving them time to transition out of their janitorial positions. The salary was 3 times what they currently made, enough for Marcus to help his mother, enough for Tasha to move her daughter into a better school district. As they left HR, they ran into Bradley Morrison in the hallway. His face was red, and he was carrying a cardboard box, the universal symbol of termination. When he saw them, his expression twisted with rage. This is your fault, he spat. You and that old, careful Tasha said quietly, her voice like steel. You've already lost your job. Don't lose what's left of your dignity. Bradley stormed past them, and Marcus released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. 2 weeks, Tasha said, looking at him. 2 weeks until our lives completely change. 2 weeks, Marcus agreed. Let's make them count. The management training program was unlike anything Marcus had imagined. The first day, he and Tasha joined 15 other employees from various departments: mailroom clerks, administrative assistants, security guards, all people who had demonstrated exceptional character but lacked traditional credentials. Mrs. Eleanor had personally selected each one. She addressed them in the training center's main conference room, her presence commanding despite her age. This company was built on a simple principle, she began, that talent and integrity exists at every level, and that opportunity should be based on merit, not privilege. My husband and I were poor once. We understood what it meant to be overlooked, dismissed, treated as less than human because of our circumstances. Marcus glanced around the room, seeing his own story reflected in the faces of his fellow trainees. The security guard who had put himself through night school, the single mother who spoke 3 languages but worked in the mailroom because she lacked a degree, the veteran who had been invisible despite his service. Over the following weeks, they learned financial analysis, project management, leadership principles, and corporate strategy. But Mrs. Eleanor insisted on something more: ethics, seminars, discussions about corporate responsibility, workshops on maintaining humanity in business. Never forget where you came from, she told them during one session. The moment you start looking down on others is the moment you become what you once despised. Marcus threw himself into the work with an intensity that surprised even him. He studied late into the night, asked questions during every session, and slowly began to believe he might actually belong here. Tasha was his constant companion through it all, and together they pushed each other to excel. But not everyone at Sterling Industries was happy about the program. Marcus overheard conversations in the break room, caught the resentful looks from some executives who had traditional MBA degrees and viewed the trainees as unqualified interlopers. This is affirmative action gone mad, one executive muttered to another as Marcus passed in the hallway. Whitmore's turned this place into a charity case. Marcus felt the old instinct to make himself small, to become invisible. But then he remembered Mrs. Eleanor's words, remembered his father, remembered why he was here. He kept walking, head high. The turning point came during their first major project presentation. Each trainee had to analyze a department and present recommendations for improvement. Marcus had been assigned to examine the facilities management department, his old domain, standing before Mrs. Eleanor, Robert Whitmore, and several board members. Marcus presented his findings. He spoke about inefficiencies in supply ordering, about safety issues that had been ignored, about the low morale among cleaning staff who felt undervalued. But he also spoke about potential, about how investing in better training and equipment could improve efficiency, how treating staff with respect could reduce turnover, how simple changes could save the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. When he finished, the room was silent. Marcus's heart sank. He had gone too far, been too critical, exposed to many uncomfortable truths. Then Mrs. Eleanor began to clap. That, she said, is exactly the kind of analysis we need. Not just number crunching, but understanding the human element. She looked at the other board members. This is why we started this program. Fresh perspectives from people who understand every level of this organization. Whitmore nodded. Implement those recommendations, Williams. You're now the project lead for facilities management, restructuring. After the meeting, Tasha grabbed Marcus in a quick hug. You did it. You actually did it. Marcus felt something shift inside him, the last vestiges of imposter syndrome giving way to genuine confidence. He wasn't just playing at being an executive. He belonged here. He had earned this. We did it, he corrected her. All of us. We're proving Mrs. Eleanor right. That evening, Marcus called his mother with news that made her cry with joy. He was no longer pretending to be someone new. He was becoming someone new, someone who honored where he came from while reaching for something more. 6 months after that transformative day in the hallway, Marcus stood in the Sterling Heights auditorium, adjusting his tie nervously. The quarterly company meeting was about to begin, and he was scheduled to present the results of the facilities management restructuring project. The auditorium was packed with employees from every level, executives, managers, and yes, the janitorial staff who had once been his colleagues. Tasha sat in the front row, having just finished her own presentation on improving employee retention programs. She gave him an encouraging smile. Beside her sat Marcus's mother, who had flown in from Detroit specifically for this event. Mrs. Eleanor took the stage first, her voice strong despite her age. 6 months ago, I conducted an experiment. I wanted to see if this company still valued the principles it was founded on: respect, integrity, opportunity. What I discovered was troubling, but I also discovered Marcus Williams and Tasha Reynolds, along with others who reminded me that those principles still exist here. She gestured to the trainees seated together. Today, I'm proud to announce that all 15 members of our inaugural Character Leadership Program have successfully completed their training. More importantly, they've already made significant impacts on this company. Marcus watched as several executives who had mocked him that day sat stiffly in their seats. Some had been demoted, others had been let go. Bradley Morrison was long gone, as was Jennifer Caldwell. In their places were people who understood that position didn't determine worth. When Mrs. Eleanor called his name, Marcus walked to the podium on steady legs. He looked out at the sea of faces and began his presentation. He spoke about the changes he had implemented, better equipment for facilities staff, improved safety protocols, a new training program, and perhaps most importantly, a respect initiative that treated every employee as a valued member of the team. The results speak for themselves, Marcus said, displaying a chart showing reduced turnover, increased efficiency, and significant cost savings. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. The real change is in culture. When people feel valued, they perform better. When they're treated with dignity, they take pride in their work. He paused, his eyes finding the janitorial staff in the audience. I was one of you 6 months ago. I pushed the same carts, cleaned the same floors, felt the same invisibility. I want you to know that your work matters. You matter. And there's no limit to what you can achieve if you're given the opportunity. The applause started slowly, then built to a standing ovation. Marcus saw tears in his mother's eyes, pride shining on her face. Mrs. Eleanor nodded approvingly. Even Whitmore, usually stoic, looked impressed. After the meeting, Marcus found Mrs. Eleanor in the hallway. "Thank you," he said simply, "for taking a chance on me, on all of us." She smiled, patting his hand just as she had that first day. "I didn't take a chance, Marcus. I recognized something that was already there. You took the chance on yourself." She glanced around the hallway where it had all begun. "Do you know what my husband used to say? The measure of a society is how it treats those it considers least important. That's true for companies too." "I'll never forget that," Marcus promised. "Or where I came from." "Good, because next year, you'll be helping me select the next group of trainees. We're expanding the program company-wide." Her eyes twinkled. "I have a feeling you'll be excellent at spotting potential others might miss." As Marcus walked back to his new office, he passed a young janitor struggling with a heavy cart. Without hesitation, Marcus stopped to help, ignoring his expensive suit and polished shoes. The janitor looked startled. "Thank you, sir." "Just Marcus," he said with a smile. "And thank you. This company runs because of people like you. Don't ever forget that." Walking away, Marcus realized that success hadn't changed. Hemet had simply given him the platform to be more of who he had always been. And that, he thought, was the greatest transformation of all. The end.